All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Higher Caliber. Today we got a special guest, John the Machine Davis, Power Slap middleweight champion from Salem, Ohio. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Appreciate y'all having me on.
Not a problem at all.
Thanks for coming.
So when we told everybody you were coming on, a lot of questions were, what is that? And then I think I've been spamming out a lot of your YouTube shorts and they're like, holy shit.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. So a little bit on your background from what I could find on the interwebs. You're from Salem? Northeast?
Yeah, at least let's say the local area, Northeast Ohio. That's pretty much where I've grown up 15, 20 minutes of this general area my whole life. So
cool. Are you still a welder by trade?
I mean, I can always lay a bead whenever necessary, but at the moment, more so machine operator maintenance at the time.
Cool. Ex-Marine?
Yeah, short stint in 2012, I believe. It's been a while now.
Yeah, cool. So what else I got? I was going through your bio. It says power lifter.
Yeah, I power lifted for a few years, and it definitely helps. I mean, not only just staying active in life, but with what I got going on now in Power Slap, because you really have a sense of how to move your body and what's comfortable and what's not, to really keep yourself, in tune and precise and accurate, and hone in on what you need to do to get the strength where you need it.
Yeah. So I guess the biggest question for our audience is what the hell is Power Slap and how did you get into it?
To start, like most people, the clips that were showing up within the past couple years of, more so Russia area or in a bar in the middle of nowhere kind of things, where people were doing these slap fight competitions. Like most people, I just, saw it, kind of laughed and thought it was humorous, and didn't think much of it when I first, saw what was going on. And then as time went on, I was looking get into amateur MMA. I had started, dabbling in jiu-jitsu and a little bit of Muay Thai at the gym in Alliance, Ohio, Next Level Alliance. Shout out to them. Once I started looking at the local amateur MMA scene, it was the same as, you get on Facebook and you're looking in all those groups and forums and all those fight forums. I kept seeing this ad. It was a chunk of change offering for this slap fighting competition. And it was in every single one of them, because I was looking at it pretty heavily again to try and, wet my beak in amateur MMA to see how that would suit. And the next thing you know, I'm jokingly commented on it. And then I was talking to the people and, slowly but surely, it didn't take too much convincing. But by the time they were like, hey, this is going to be a big thing and we really need people to get into it. So I was lucky enough to stumble across the forum, because there are a lot of the people that are in it now, from the very beginning, at least, that were, they were pro fighters, or they had some sort of connection that someone had reached out to them to get into this. So I, again, very luckily stumbled across it. And, lo and behold, once you get down there, because I'm going through all this paperwork, I'm wondering how these NDAs and all this paperwork is so long, and it's all legal jargon. So, it's confusing for your average Joe like myself to really understand.
Right.
And then you get down there and find out that it's Dana White's project, and we can't talk about what exactly we're doing or what we're there to do. So within a short amount of time, I'm talking about it jokingly at home, and then having a serious conversation with my family about going and doing this, and it being under, the biggest promoter of the world, Dana White, and all of his guys up there. Shout out to all of them for getting this started, because I'd still be, even if I would have stumbled into a good scene of amateur MMA, I still wouldn't have a career going at this point that was anything for anyone to look at. But again, get down to Vegas, we do the qualifiers. I was a heavyweight at that time. I weighed 220 at weigh-ins that day. If that, they might have given me a pound or two because they needed people and they needed bigger guys. So I ate an extra large cheese pizza the day and the night before weigh-in, so that way I could be as heavy as possible. And that was pretty grueling. The opposite of most people's weight cut stories. But I went out there, went 1-1 at heavyweight at the qualifier. Didn't know what was going to go on from there because they could have just as easily passed me up and not given me a second chance. And we were told, I think it was only going to be, a month or two before we heard back. And then it's 3 months went by, almost 4 months before you really heard anything. And then you get a phone call saying that, hey, we're doing a show that's going to be aired on TBS and we would like you to be part of it. And that's pretty much where, the roller coaster I got strapped into was set. And now it's just been full throttle, go ahead to, passing up the numbers of the NFL, of the NBA. I mean, any other
the viewership stats.
Sport,
yeah.
Any other big sport that is really out there right now, we've blown out of the water, and we're only going into our 5th event. So within 4 events, and one of them not even having any title fights on it, it's gone from, in a hotel with NDAs with a bunch of us that really weren't sure what was going on. Some of us thought that we were going to wake up in a bathtub full of ice, missing a kidney or your liver or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And now it's just I get this 5th event coming up October 25th that I'll have my title defense at. It's probably going to be, the biggest staple, I think, in our expansion. It's probably going to bring the biggest numbers. It's grown so fast in such a short amount of time. And, for my story to be lucky enough to stumble upon it. Yeah. And then again, work my way through the TV show to get a title fight, retain my title after a very rough match. And now, again, it's still unbelievable when I hear myself saying it. So that's why I start shaking my head in the midst of the conversation.
Yeah.
Especially, watching the UFC fights last night. I didn't think anything of it. They had promoted it in the corner a little bit. And the next thing you know, I look up and see myself on the TV along with all of the other title fights and contenders.
That's wild.
How did you feel? How did you feel when you saw yourself on TV?
I mean, for a second, I had to do a double take. Because I was like, what the? And I was like, oh, that's myself up there on the television right now. As I was, I don't know, I think I was getting a diaper or something. So it was really, really odd, and also still, shocking to believe that this is even what's going on.
Yeah. And
really, really having to find the time to embellish and live in the moment, because it's not going to be a forever career. I'm sure I only have so long, like anybody else who does martial arts.
Yeah.
But again, to see myself up on the TV along with everybody else was a shocker, and also amazing at the same time, because we've come so far in such a small amount of time.
Absolutely. Did you actually do a fight before you agreed to be on TBS?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what the qualifiers were originally.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry if I confused you there. I know there's a whole bunch of it and I was rambling.
No, you're good.
But
the qualifiers originally, they had us go down. There was no public allowed to know about it. We weren't allowed to talk about it with, obviously your family at home, but we couldn't go on any socials and let out that it was going to be through Dana White, connected to the UFC, and any of that fun stuff. But it was definitely crazy to get down there for the first original ones, because I had 2 fights beforehand. Again, like I said, I started off at heavyweight. I won my first one and lost the second one by decision to a great dude. His name's Dorian, known as Disturbing the Peace. him and I went up there and we put on a hell of a show. He easily could have, he's knocked out dudes bigger than me at that time and bigger than I am right now. So it was definitely some of the craziest stuff I ever thought I would do. And then again, we got done with those qualifying matches before the TV show was even in talks. And then that's when they called to see if I would be able to go on to the TBS show that we did.
Cool.
So were you on from like the inception of the whole league, if you will? I mean,
yes.
you were.
Yeah, that's.
Not to say that you didn't. I mean, you were a pioneer of this Power Slap League.
Yeah, that's what a lot of us refer to. We'll say the OGs of this, because there was there was supposed to have been a lot more people down there for the qualifier event, and maybe a quarter of us wound up down there. There was supposed to be people from even out of the country that were going to show up, and now it's so big. They've got, hundreds of people sending in applications a day. But for that small chunk of time in the very beginning, that window that was us, that, like I said, referred to as the OGs, I was there from the beginning of this for Power Slap. I've seen it change so far from the beginning between the rule sets, how we've all been treated. I mean, we've been treated great from the beginning, so that was never anything to worry about, at least in my eyes. But the amount of care that you get from the people, I mean, it's like a family. That's definitely happened. Not so much between competitors anymore, especially with how, things have gone recently in a few different aspects, but that's the name of the fight game.
Sure.
But when it comes to, again, my personal relationship with the matchmakers, the president, his name is Frank Lamasilla, shout out to him. Again, Dana White, people were, so have you ever talked to Dana? It's like, well, if we're there, he makes you, dap him up, you give him a hug, he asks how you're doing. I can, send him a message on Instagram. He'll shoot me an emoji back. He congratulated me on having the new baby. So it definitely,
that's awesome.
Definitely just an absolute wild ride to, again, be from the beginning of this and to be one of the ones who survived the onslaught of people really not wanting to care about it or having the negative aspect to come at us and say anything and everything that they could, to, again, being a champion and having the respect shown to me from everybody in Power Slap now is truly amazing.
Hell yeah. What did your family say when you were telling them what you were up to? Were they just like, you're doing what? Why? Like, or was it, you're crazy? Why are you doing this? I'm expecting that reaction, but I don't know.
In my house with my wife and kids, because before I even told anybody else, I sat down with them and, we talked about it as open. Again, my kids are younger, so as much as they could understand. And I talked about it with my wife overly. She was in full support if that's what I wanted to do. They, again, like you said, you expect everyone to think you're crazy, and I get that wholeheartedly. I think they more so knew that I was already crazy, and the fact that I was even asking and able to go out and do that to see if they would have my back in this. Had to deal with some crazy aspects of life right when I found it. So it definitely was a bit of a release for me to have something to focus on at the time and really train towards. So it was great. A lot of other people had, some negative things to say. I didn't really care what they had to say because I'm the one laughing now. So that's the best part about it for me. Right. But everybody that I knew, friends from high school, people that I worked with, a lot of them who've known me over time were instantly, oh yeah, that makes so much sense that's what you're going to do. I was definitely a wild child, adrenaline junkie, if you will. So when a lot of my friends, I first came and told them about it, they instantly, instantly were on board and had my back. Even the other day, one of my best friends, because, I make jokes about it because, of course, calling myself dumb or stupid along those lines, like some people do, just in the midst of it, for having a laugh. And he looked at me and was like, "I don't think you're dumb or stupid for doing it." So that was really a reassuring moment, especially with a friend who I've had for over 10 years. So it was really, really nice and reassuring to have a lot of people have your back, including, again, like the people at my gym, friends and close family were all really understanding for the most part.
Yeah. Well, when I look at it, I say to myself, it takes a special kind of person to stand there and take 100% slap and knowing that it's coming. Don't flinch or try not to, and just take it full force. That's like the slow motion videos. You watch it and you're just like, every single one of them. It's
wild.
Yeah.
Just completely wild.
Yeah. Do you mind? I don't think we cover it. Just briefly explaining kind of the rules for people that don't know what we're talking about. Unless they turn this off to go look at it by now, which I'm sure they have.
Yeah, right. No, the rule set consists of no flinching. You're not supposed to be moving along before, like, you're allowed to roll with it once contact is made, but you have such the tiny window for that to not get called as a flinch. And they go back through with all the high speed slow-mo cameras to where in between rounds they're able to make those calls. But that's the number one thing is not getting the flinch, because if you get the call on you, it's either point deduction, or if you have too many of any sort of penalty, it could cost you the whole match. Okay. But as that flinching is the main one that you, as the recipient, you have to really deal with. And it's more so as a striker, you can't pivot your foot like when you're throwing in boxing or MMA. Your feet your feet have to be parallel, and you can't really pivot them. You're allowed a real small amount of heel lift because of momentum. Okay. I mean, people really don't realize that when you throw that hard with everything in your upper body, you could very easily blow your own knee out if you don't. Definitely. If you're not training properly or not paying attention to your stance or moving through it. And then clubbing, there's a window of the jaw. So right behind my microphone, down the jaw, and then to the tip of the chin, up through here again is the window where your hand is supposed to land. There's some play on that because some people have a freaking catcher's mitt for a hand. Yeah. And as the recipient, you really just kind of have to deal with that. But once you start floating up towards the eye, that's a penalty for clubbing. If you hit with your hand bent, and more so the palm, then the whole even, it's supposed to be even when it lands also. And the bottom of your hand is not supposed to go past the chin. Okay. And also, you can't be down here in the neck where obviously the carotid is. So you hit someone in the artery in the neck, you're going to knock them out. And then, because you're taking oxygen away from the brain there for a second, and or possibly catching them in the windpipe. Yeah. Because that's one thing. In the beginning, they had a lot of issues just with all of it in general, I'd say, because it was so new. Yeah. But again, they've got all these high-tech, high-speed cameras that they're going over. They're changing the rule set as time goes on. They just changed it not too long ago to where in a 3-round fight, it takes, if I'm not mistaken, it takes 2 of the fouls, no matter what it is. Don't hold me to that part exactly, but if I'm mistaken, at least from the striking aspect, it takes 2 of those fouls, and you very well may lose the match at that point. Okay. Yeah, and I guess I didn't think about that too when it comes to flinching. If you flinch, you could possibly be setting yourself up for a worse hit, even though you're going to get dinged anyway. But if you lift they're aiming in the wrong spot. But what kind of, did they have people for you, like mentors to go to? Like, you guys are pioneers, so there's nobody that's really like, I've been doing this for 20 years. Just hit them like this. Or for the TV show, they had 2 guys who were doing it regularly in some YouTube videos. So they were brought in amongst a few other a few other people that have, again, they started at the lower level and were trying to make their own promotions. And
I think I saw the two guys you're talking about.
Wolverine and Darius.
They went like 26 or something matches in a row, and
20, I think it was like 27 rounds, and the only reason it got stopped is was doctor stoppage because Wolverine's eye had begun to swell up so bad from the side.
So they're like, "Oh, you two, you're the coaches."
Yeah,
yeah, a good way to
pick. Pretty much. That's how that went. But that wasn't until the actual TV show. So when all of us got down there for the qualifier event a few months beforehand, people hadn't even trained for it. I was lucky enough to where I started kind of digging into watching the videos that were online. I started, at least from the rule sets that you kind of heard about, if any at all, because some of them just had no rule sets. People were just pretty much throwing a punch with their palm and calling it a slap. So that was one of the things that you weren't too sure about when you got down there. But the coaching aspect of any of us getting some legitimate training for the most part didn't happen until the TV show. It was pretty much kind of winging it for the qualifier event before the TBS series happened.
Yeah.
You, John, you talked about training. Give us a rundown of like what your training routine looks like, or what are you doing day to day or whatever to prepare for these matches.
Functional strength, I'd say, is a key thing. And also finding workouts that correlate with the movements you're going to be doing. So a lot of side to side, for core work, the side to side stuff, because that's where you're really coming through with the extra pop and power. I would say deadlift is a good one, even if you're not going super heavy, but it keeps your feet planted and not moving in a way that you can really, that your feet are rooted into the ground. And at least if you have a powerlifting background, or at least some lifting background, how your stance is supposed to be. So that way you're comfortable in it. And again, like I said, you're not overextending and throwing and finding out a way to hurt yourself, because that was another one. A lot of guys were hurting their elbows real quick, or their wrist, because they had never really done any of it before. And when you hit someone who they're planted there, a lot of that stuff, like you said, the slow-mos look crazy, but you also see slow-mos where people hit someone and their head doesn't even move.
Yeah.
So your window of opportunity to get that hit where it needs to be is a lot smaller and a lot harder than I think people realize. But again, the impact of hitting the heavy bag is different than hitting a person, but also it's helpful because it's the impact training, I would say, that helps your arm be prepared for, smacking someone like myself who's got a cinder block for a head.
How much would you say pure power versus technique go into your fights? I mean, there's got to be a lot of technique as well as just pure brute strength, correct?
Absolutely, because without any of the technique, you can be super strong and knock somebody out, but you're going to screw up in the process of doing that, and that will lose you the fight. So if I went into a fight, I get hit and knocked out, and the person has a stepping foul or a clubbing violation or something along those lines, I win that fight because I can't continue now because I was illegally knocked out.
I gotcha. So, and I think we were all focusing on, slapping, but how do you prepare to take a hit? I mean, what do you do? Is it mental? Is there some kind of physical training that you do to be able to take repeated blows like that?
Some people I know just had the homies back home give them a smack or two to see if they were going to get through it or not. I know a lot of it, me personally, I just knew that I was able to take a hit for the most part. And again, I was willing to gamble with it. I don't gamble, or really, I'm not even one to buy a scratch off ticket, but I was going to Vegas to do this. And that was what I like to gamble on, was my chin at the time. So that's what I usually tell people. It could have. I could have got clobbered twice and slept both times and would have just had to deal with it. But luckily, I think taking impacts from dealing, high school sports, and again, being a rowdy kid where me and my friends would just go beat each other up in cornfields and oil well driveways.
Yeah.
You just kind of know whether you got it or you don't. And if you don't think about that, and that's just the physical aspect of it. On the show, they did, if you take a pool noodle and cut it down about yay long and have someone, because we were set up in teams, so we were training together, and have someone practice. It helps you not flinch because you know that you're going to be getting hit by something, and it gets you used to your, shutting your mind off to be prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
But you take the pool noodle and use it as a striker, so that way you're hitting them continuously, and then you're able to kind of sit there and be mentally prepared for it.
I gotcha.
As you were saying, the mental aspect of it, again, that goes back to being crazy and really just, 3 sheets to the wind in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you're someone who has a background in any sort of sport where you trained very, very hard and you can push yourself through these limits that a lot of people would never even come close to trying, like doing 40 minutes in the sauna. Most people don't want to do 4 minutes in the sauna, let alone 40. And that's the kind of thing that I like to do, where it pushes the mental. Not only is it physically good because it gets all the crap out of your body, it helps clear you out. And then, obviously if you're doing a weight cut, it's one of those things that you run into anyway. But I don't ever have to use it for a weight cut. I prefer to do it as, like I say to people, I like to torture myself in that way. So, pushing the cardio and pushing through reps of any sort of workout that are extra, again, getting through that mental block to where most people want to stop, they want to quit, they want to give up, and fighting through that is I would say the best way to mentally prepare for all of this.
Awesome. That's good. Yeah. I was wondering that myself, because like I said, you see the slow-mo and you just see the look on everybody's face. I mean, you're tough guys, so it's not like you're wincing, but it's just like, you're getting hit no matter what. There's no like, oh, I'm a really good fighter, you're not going to touch me. Like, no, you're going to touch me. So I'm assuming in the back of everybody's head, I hope I knock him out like right now, so I don't got to deal with this. I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately for me, I've lost quite a few of the coin tosses, because that's another thing of the rule set I forgot. They do a coin toss beforehand. They do it earlier now for the betting odds, so that way Vegas can have their fun with it. I lost the coin toss yet again, but surprisingly, I think it's like 51% of people, so it's real. It might as well be 50-50. Yeah. Even the guys who win the coin toss, they're not just going out and KO and like it has happened, obviously. Yeah. But statistic-wise, a lot of guys lose the coin toss, go out there, eat the hit, and then it's really on. Not that I like taking the hits, because believe me, if I could go out there, one and done them, get my bag and go home, I would do that, as many times as I could. Yeah. But the fun, at least as the entertainment aspect of it for the crowd, again, for the brass who have put you up to putting on the show for everybody, when you go up there and eat the hit, I think that's one thing people really need to focus on more, because now you've just gone up there and, like you said, let someone full-fledged, as hard as they can, hopefully legally, land a strike on you, and then you just look right back at them, because in their mind, they're expecting you to topple.
Yeah. Right.
And when you're still standing there after they just dropped a bomb on you, that I think is the mental aspect that you have to be prepared to go 3 to 5 rounds, depending on if it's a title fight or not. Because if you think you're just going to go up there and one and done someone, and then they're staring back at you afterwards, and even better, a lot of us, we have little things that we try and do afterwards, whether it's a head shake, a smile, you do something cool and make a spectacle out of the situation. That's really a mental game that you're playing 3D chess up there at that point.
Yeah.
That's wild. It's a shame that you couldn't be here, because I think I had Jared talked into taking a hit from you.
He didn't. And I don't know why that was everybody's question. Like, hey, we're getting John Davis on. Here's his videos. And they're like, so you're going to take a slap? I'm like, what? I never said that.
That seems to be a reoccurring thing when most, sponsor wise and all of that stuff, when they meet you, oh, hey, would you? And I'm like, I can't just be out here slapping folks willy nilly. I'm gonna end up getting sued. Yeah, right. I'm gonna end up getting sued real quick. So I usually tell people, especially when oh, don't slap me. I'm like, don't worry. I put my slapping hands in a briefcase. I lock it and I leave them down in Vegas.
Just slapping people. Yeah.
Are all your events held in Vegas? Have you gone anywhere else to do anything else?
Yes. No, not yet. I think this event right here, again, like I said, is gonna be the breaking point where we've already had from the beginning to now. You have all these influencers or people who are Dana's friends and or at least in the know-how of what's going on. From the beginning, they kind of invited a few people there. And again, the UFC fighters that wanted to come were allowed. So now it's pretty much invite only. If us as the fighters you get tickets for family or friends or whoever you want to invite. But now it's to the point where people they're trying to buy tickets off of you if you have them to get in there.
Right.
And we fill up the Apex and it's a whole spectacle down there. But I'm really hoping that we get through this event, we blow all the numbers out of the water, shock the world yet again, have all of the haters jaw dropped one more time, trying to type as fast as they can to have something to say. And then we can really get into, the sphere they just put in down in Vegas. Everyone would love to be down there. Imagine hearing someone get clapped in that. In any state that they have MMA or boxing at this point, we should be allowed, in my views, to go there and do the same thing and fill an arena, because I would love nothing more than to hear the echo, not just of my own, but of all of the people in this, just go through from the floor, through your opponent, all the way up to the top of the venue, and just hear the roar of the crowd. Because in the moments that you line up, it's not so much like boxing or UFC where they're out there getting it, they're moving around, you can kind of hear them, there's people in the mix chatting in the crowd. You line up and you've got a few people like, eat it, take it, whatever. But there's when you're lining up at the very end, people are just holding on to their seats like, oh my God. And then boom. And then the crowd goes crazy. People are jumping out of their seats, spilling beer. Like it's a spectacle in itself. And I would love nothing more than sooner than later to fill an arena for the fans.
Yeah. So right now, if you don't have an exclusive ticket, like most people don't, you can watch it free on Rumble, right?
Yes, live and free on the Rumble app. Yes, that's where we are.
I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, the deal is for, I think it was a 2-year deal, so I don't know if we have next year also or not. I'm not too sure. I'd have to find out next time I'm down there. But that's where our deal is at currently, to be, again, live and free on Rumble. If you haven't heard me say it already, October 25th, this Power Slap 5 coming up. So that's where you can watch.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing your opponent's name right. Aziel Rodriguez?
Aziel Rodriguez is his name. El Perro the dog. Yep.
Okay. October 25th, 9 p.m. Eastern on Rumble.
Yes,
most people I talk to about just other things on Rumble, they're like, what is that? And I'm like, you should know this already. Download it on your phone. If you don't have it, you should download it to watch this. And also, because things you want to watch on YouTube that aren't there are on Rumble as well.
They've done really well with being an open platform and the no censorship thing, which, if you live in America, you should absolutely be for. So freedom of speech and freedom to have your stuff not censored or demonetized because someone's a boohoo crybaby pants and can't handle it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's why I was happy to see that Rumble has so much backing, especially from Dana and the UFC and all that. So I was trying to find the stats for the Power Slap viewership because it's insane. I want to read it real quick. Tim, you got something?
Yeah. John, you mentioned a few times the haters. You want to talk about them a little bit? I mean, because I read a little bit, I did a little bit of research on, Power Slap and whatnot, but you just want to talk a little bit about why people are hating so much, I guess?
Like most stuff, especially, like Dana has said several times from the beginning of the UFC, people want to talk about how barbaric it is, how savage it is, or how dumb we are for doing it, or listen, is it risky? Absolutely. Could you get hurt? Sure. Could you get hurt when you wake up in the morning after your alarm goes off and you fall down and smack your head off your dresser and you can never walk right again? That could happen to you too, but you don't see people saying they're not going to get up and go to work in the morning about it.
Right.
It's the kind of thing where you wouldn't do it yourself. That's fine. No one's asking you to do that. I'm not going to force you to watch it. I don't think you should be forced to watch it.
Right. They
They were mad because it's Dana White. So they want to boo-hoo and cry at him about stuff because that's just what everybody does. It's a spectacle in itself, like I said, that most people would never want to try. And is it jaw-dropping? Absolutely. But instead of going about it and being like, oh, well, give those people props for doing their thing, I'm going to go my direction. You have to have your opinion. And of course, the keyboard warriors can hide in their mom and dad's basement while they're, waiting on a hot pocket that mommy's making for them in the microwave because they've been down there all week. Yeah, right. Ma, the meatloaf. Ma.
Oh, that's great.
They were just, they can't handle the fact that we went out and took a risk. And it's paid off tremendously for us and put us in a spotlight that they'll never be in and given us opportunities that they're never going to have.
Yeah.
So, again, like I said, if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. But guess what? Every hateful comment you put down, every view that you click on to dislike or put a grumpy face or tell Dana, stop promoting this. I thought this was dead already. Guess what? It's not. It's not going anywhere. No. And it's even better, his friend, old Mr. Rogan, who everybody loves his podcasting, and I've listened to plenty of those myself. He's upset about it because, again, he doesn't understand it. And for me personally, before you crap on all of us and the entire organization as a whole, you never got to know any of us as a person beforehand because we're humans also. So you don't know the reasons why we're doing it. You don't know the benefits we're getting out of it in our lives that are helpful to us. And you also, you like I said, again, you just want to take the time to have your little boo-hoo comment put on whatever platform you're on. And because you've finally been heard and your point's going to get across, your point's not going to get across to anybody. You just sound like a crybaby at the end of the day. And it's just really obnoxious at this point, but I can't not ever bring it up or address it because for me personally, I come from a wild background, like I said, and plenty of people who could have tried to help me a little bit more when I was younger, whether it was school or sports. They took the latter of that statement and preferred to just talk smack to someone who probably needed help.
Yeah.
And in my eyes, I have this platform now that I'm given to where I want to represent the people who get up every day and bust their hump and go to work, whether they're just dredging along through it, hoping to get by to another paycheck. If you've had the mental health issues that everybody mostly has in this day and age, I'm up there because I've had to deal with that stuff myself. People who had rough times in life, I've been there. I'm up there to battle through those times and be the person that, kids can look up to. Like, do I think kids need to be out there slapping each other? No, absolutely not. Don't do that. But can I be a professional in the world that I'm in and be an example for people who I never even knew this was going to be a dream for me? But full-fledged, tenfold going ahead as hard charged as I can. I'm chasing this until the very end, and whatever it turns into, so be it. I never thought I'd make it anywhere in life. I wasn't predicted to make it anywhere in life. I was supposed to be on cops, dead in a ditch by 18, in jail, all sorts of stuff like that. And now I have a platform to talk to those people who have, whether someone's told you that's where you're going to end up, or whether you just feel that way about yourself. I'm here to tell those people that you can change your life on your own, and you really just have to keep on fighting through it, no matter what.
Yeah, and it sounds cliche, but it's legit. It really happened for you. You didn't. Nobody knew this would be a thing, and wherever you were in your past, you're here all of a sudden. Just boom. So, I think that's inspirational. I mean, you are the Ohio man now. Like, I want to see you out there slapping people.
Yeah, for sure.
It's encouraging for real. I just wanted to, before I forget, this social media explosion. I'm sure you've seen it, but views on social media over 2 billion, social media followers 5.2 million, viewers of Joel Scott's KO 352 million. Power Slap YouTube Shorts exceeds MLB, NHL, NFL, and NBA by 4 times. That's insane. Views on Rumble of Power Slap 1 and 2 over 5 million. And you're on, this is going to be 5, right? Power Slap 5?
Yes.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's insane.
I don't follow UFC super close. I'm one of those guys who like watches the end of the fight. But this is like almost the end of the fight. Just dopamine hit every time you watch it, and it's like slap, 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 slap. Yep. Whammy, whammy.
Just like
whammy.
you said, you're on the edge of your seat. You can probably hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
Like, all right, what's going to happen,
Yeah, absolutely. And people, that's another thing, when it comes to addressing why people are questioning, why Dana get into this? Why he got bored with the UFC. And, that's not a jab at any of those guys. Cause by all means, if you legitimately enjoy the technicalities of people with the Muay Thai or kickboxing background, the jiu-jitsu background, and the guys who are just all around together, well-rounded MMA fighters, yeah. If you really understand what they're doing, watching the whole fight is no problem for you.
Right.
But for your average fan and the people who are going to buy the pay-per-views that are the big fights at home, they're tired of watching it. That's why Dana White brought in his Contender series that he has on, because he wants the people that are going to come in there and look for a finish no matter what throughout the entire fight. We skip past all the, the people that lay on each other for 5 rounds and they get the win because they were in control the whole time. We skip all of that. We skip all past all of that. We get right to the main course of what people want to see. And that's what I think makes people, again, like Mr. Rogan, so upset, because he's a very, diehard jiu-jitsu and kickboxing Muay Thai guy. It makes all of the people from that side of the martial arts world upset, because they don't understand why there's not all of this backing and all of these events going on for those other sports. But it's what the people want. Just like you have to give the people what they want.
Yeah, they want, like Jared said, do you want that dopamine dump right now? And it's just like, Instagram Reels and TikTok, people are just scrolling, looking for that, they want it right now. You know what I mean? So it makes sense.
So what does I watch Joe Rogan too. I haven't really heard him talk much about it, at least on his podcast. Does he think it's just like knockout porn or like?
Pretty much. He didn't think it was going to last long. It was one of those things where it's to the point where there was a few episodes where he actually, he refuses to say it now, which I think that's the case. I haven't got to listen to too many podcasts lately. I've been kind of busy with a whole bunch of stuff, but it was one of those things where he almost refuses to say it because on his platform, that gives us light. And I don't think he likes that. And again, some of the other guys from the podcast world, whether they're hating on it or loving it, they bring it up on their platforms because they have no choice. The people want to hear about it again, whether they're hating or not. It's one of those things where the purists, and I think that's what a lot of the folks who, probably from at least a martial arts background, they're like, oh, this is stupid. They think, again, they don't take the time to learn about it. They don't take the time to ask us the techniques that we have, the rule set, the technicalities that we have. They think, again, it's, oh, you're just going to get hit in the head and take brain damage. So let me ask you this. In one sparring session for boxing, Muay Thai, or MMA, whatever it is that you're doing, you're taking hundreds of hits to train, just to train. A lot of guys, even if you do that style of training where you're taking hits for slap fighting, how many are you going to take? 3? I can count on both hands. Well, maybe not anymore, I guess. So there it is. There's a perfect example. There's the brain damage. But there it is. I can count, it's a very low number of hits that I've taken competing in this sport. Yeah. Meanwhile, if I go to sparring night at the gym and spar 4 or 5 people for 5-minute rounds, I'm going to get kicked or hit in the head a whole bunch of times. Granted, you're not swinging for the fences trying to knock each other out. Right. But we all know in training, especially in the UFC with a lot of the guys from the past, they would get knocked out before a fight. And instead of doing what they're supposed to and letting them know, hey, I've taken some damage, I need to not have this fight happen, they don't tell anybody about it. And then they go in there and wonder why they've sustained extra damage. Like the current heavyweight champ is going to college to be a lawyer. So you can call us all stupid all you want, but that guy will sue you in the process when he's done with all of this because he can. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like a lot of people, at least now, we're not we're not just that one clip that you see. Our backstories that people need to, again, like you guys giving me the platform to come on here and elaborate this stuff. This is what needs to happen for more of us. We need to be able to explain it. We need to be able to tell our stories and why we're up there doing it. Because granted, are there some selfish reasons? Are we crazy? And are we a bit psychotic with wanting to knock somebody out? Yeah. But in what combat sport are you not? That's what it really comes down to. We're the same as the rest of you guys. It's just something new that you don't think you like because, again, you don't understand it and you haven't given us a chance.
Right. Yeah. I mean, going back to the like the brain damage or the concussion thing, I know they've been asking these like older quarterbacks and stuff. How many times in your career when you got hit did you see stars and like get fuzzy? And they're like, pretty much every time. And they're like, well, how many concussions have you had? Oh, maybe like 5 or 6. They're like, no, that's a concussion every time you see stars and stuff. So that's constant. So like you said, granted, you're getting hit pretty hard, but there's a lot of nuance to it.
Have you experienced any injuries yet while you've been competing?
Actually, in my second fight, when I defended the title, I dislocated my shoulder, and that's why I haven't been able to return until this one. So if you haven't seen those clips yet, I'm sure you can run and look them up afterwards. I hit him. He falls and leans on the table and holds himself up, and I kind of had to put my shoulder back into place. And the only reason I knew what was going on is my left shoulder used to do the same thing in high school football repeatedly. So going back to sports that you let your children play, and just for a quick second, kids in soccer constantly getting concussions from heading the ball or getting the ball kicked to hit him in the face.
Well, and look how much, sports have changed their rules. I mean, even recently, like how they hit and I'm not current on all that, but you said that the power slap have been changing the rules. And I believe probably for the better, would you agree? Or for safety reasons? I mean, they haven't gone back, taking steps back with the rule changes, have they?
No, not in any way, shape, or form. Everything is done to, keep us healthy and prevent us from taking unnecessary damage, because the amount of testing that we go through and all of that stuff is beyond anything that I ever would have thought that I'd go through. Like if I tried to get one of these physicals that I've done with all of the tests involved on my own dime, I'd be broke. I'd lose my house.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's one of those things, and they've caught stuff for people just like they have in the UFC. People who have a tumor or anything. That actually, the only reason I say that is because I know specifically there was a guy who had a tumor in his brain that he had no idea about, and if he hadn't signed up to come do Power Slap, he very likely never would have got that looked at and found that until it was either too late, because if you go into an organization where that doesn't happen and you get hit, they're not going to know what's going on until, unfortunately, you're gone.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think it's nice to humanize it more instead of, a lot of people just look on there like, oh, these guys are slapping each other. I guess they just found guys that want to slap each other or whatever.
Exactly. And that's why Dana was so excited to get it regulated, because he saw the numbers it was doing. And he's like, we need regulation and healthcare for these dudes, because if not, you're
Yeah.
going to end up getting in multiple fights in a night because your trash promoter wants you to keep getting knocked out repeatedly, so that way he can put up his content and he can make money. And then
Right.
he can rob you in the long run and tell you that the numbers weren't good or whatever the situation was, and pretty much screw you over, because that's what happened in MMA for a long time before things were regulated and things were getting taken care of. And I guarantee you that's exactly what's happening in a lot of these I'll call them organizations that want to do slap fighting, because they don't care about you. They just want you to show up so that way they can get their content and use you and abuse you. And that's not how Power Slap is by any means.
Yeah. A couple of high-speed cameras and a dive bar. I've seen a couple of those.
Are there any other leagues, or you said organizations? I mean, is there anybody else out there trying to have their own league or promote their own stuff?
I'll say yes, because I'm not going to speak on them, only because just because I don't want to. I don't want to say their names. But I would say the one that really helped Dana would be when Logan Paul and Arnold at the Classic in Ohio, they had their first slap competition. Again, if I'm not mistaken, he said he reached out to Logan Paul and asked him about that. So that was one of those things that he could kind of just be like, well, what were the numbers, or how did you go about it? What was the rule set? It's things like that he was able to connect with people, and then again, turn it over into what, the crazy machine that we have today that is Power Slap.
Right.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to back up just because I'm curious, and we should have talked about this earlier, but you said that you went from, seeing an ad online to reading all these NDAs and, all this paperwork. What was that timeline like? Like, how much time was that? And, did you make all these decisions? Was anybody a mentor for you? Like, did you say, man, should I really do this? Like, what was the deciding factor that said, I'm going to do this?
I can't say I really had a mentor at all in the beginning of this. I've negotiated all my own stuff up until this point, and I've taken the tactic of really kind of managing myself up until this point. If I get a manager in the future, it's got to really be something that's going to be beneficial to me, because everything that I've done on my own so far has worked out great. And again, they've treated me so well. But as for what was the second part of the question again? Can you repeat that just so I don't go off on a different tangent?
I just kind of I wanted to know what the timeline was like. Okay. Like you saw an ad, and then you're going and doing your thing. So like, how quick was that?
Maybe a few months, because that's what I was saying beforehand. Before I had found this, I lost my mother, her husband, my grandfather, and an aunt within a year's time right beforehand. So I definitely was having to deal with a lot. And then at that point, that's when I was like, I need to take the chances and risks that nobody ever would, especially in my family in general. So stumbling across that ad, and then I think I might have had a month or so from talking to the people about the qualifier before we signed the paperwork to get down there. So, we'll say 2 months at max to really get prepared for this thing.
Wow. So
In the
rather
very
quick.
beginning.
I mean, yeah.
That's wild.
It moved very fast from the beginning. And like I said, they weren't even really, a lot of people didn't know that Dana was the one behind this in the very beginning. Some of us were fortunate enough to either figure it out or someone, slipped and said that's what the situation was. But a lot of us were very unsure about where this organization was at and who was backing it at the beginning. And then once you find out who it is and where you're going, that was pretty much done deal for me at that point. I knew it was going to be the best in the world.
Absolutely.
What's your competing in like work and life balance like? I mean, I know you said you're married and you have kids. I mean, is it just chaotic? Are you trying to train every day, or what's it like?
Life is hectic and chaotic no matter what you got going on, but it's definitely, I'm still trying to balance it out in all reality, trying to keep things to where I'm training enough, at least in my mind, because my problem is no matter what I do, I always feel like I'm coming up short. I could work out for 24 hours straight and still be like, I didn't do enough. I didn't do this right. I didn't have that happen. So it's again, I'm still in the process of finding that balance between, again, we have a newborn here at home. So this is a whole new experience in general. It was one thing to fly thousands of miles away from my wife and kids and be gone. And, especially the TV show, you had no connection with them. So that was 3 weeks with no phone, we got to do a video call, luckily, while we were in the house as a treat. But that was the first time that I've gone, me and my wife hadn't spent more than 24 hours apart since we first got together up until we went to do the TBS show. So then that on top of being gone from my kids, it broke me and it broke a lot of people that were down there. They show the video of you crying. And of course people are like, oh, you're crying on TV. Yeah, bro. I was losing my mind.
Yeah. It's a lot to deal with.
Heartbroken. Yeah. You really, again, taking in those moments and lessons about being separated from your family for that amount of time and not being able to talk to them, it really goes to show you that you need to appreciate the moments you get, because every day is not promised. And it really goes to show that I need to be the best version of myself every day, even on my worst days, for them at home, to show them that that's how life is. And you have to keep pushing forward no matter what the scenario is, because life is hard, and it's only getting harder at this point, because like you said, I'm trying to balance all these things between training for it. There's my gym for jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. How much training am I able to go in there and do? Not as much recently because of the recovery aspect that I had to deal with. But it's time away from home again after spending, when I was a welder, I was working 10-hour shifts. And now I'm working 8 hours a day, which isn't as bad, but I have so much to try and catch up on that I feel like I need to be doing. I feel like I have a never ending list that every time, if I go to take a break, I feel like the list is just getting longer. And that's not, again, not fair to my wife or kids for me to be, you get lost up here with it, because I'm constantly thinking about networking. Who am I going to talk to next? What podcast am I going to be on? Who am I going to have on my podcast? When's the next email coming in about leaving to do this? What's my next medical check? Can I go train with these folks tonight because they would like to get together? Can we have a person over to hang out? It's really
be a human again.
Yeah, because to me, I'm just a regular guy that, I'm just trying to figure life out like everybody else. But I have to remind myself it's different now than most people are ever going to understand, not just as a competitor in this thing, but as a champion and as a face of the organization.
Definitely.
I want to be someone.
People that look up to you. Like you were saying, like the kids and stuff. I mean, and if that's what you want to do, I think that's freaking awesome that you can be, somebody that they look up to and they can relate to your experiences. I think that's amazing. So, I mean, keep doing it.
Absolutely. You can, authenticity was a key thing for me throughout this entire thing. Granted, there's times where I'm up there hooping, hollering, screaming in people's faces and throwing profanity around, but that's usually in reaction to something that they've already done or said to me. So
Yeah.
I'm not one to go up there freaking out anymore. I'd prefer to keep it contained until competition day. But if someone says something that needs to be addressed on the spot, by all means, I'm going to open my mouth and say something about it.
Yeah, I think just from a fan perspective, after seeing your last fight and then seeing the pre-interview or whatever, when you're really humble about everything, or at least trying not to, be cocky. And then the guy that was being cocky got, the rest is history. But everybody likes to see that. They're like, I hope he gets knocked the fuck out.
Absolutely, and it's crazy to see. We'll focused on the haters a lot, the support from not just here in my home state, not just here in the US, but the support from around the world. People coming out of the woodwork in my messenger box like, hey, we support you, Dagestan, Australia, Paris. I had someone talking about being from Paris, France on my live the one day,
That's awesome.
It's Canada. Canada loves this stuff. India, they love this stuff. I had a guy the other day when I was going to do the promo in Vegas. He's like, hey, would you be willing to video call me real quick? So I'm waiting in the airport. I figured, why not give this guy a couple minutes if he really asked for it. It took a little bit for us to try and communicate. It was nighttime over there, and I can't tell what he's saying. He can't tell what I'm saying. But it's a lot of thumbs up, a lot of head shaking, and a lot of thank you.
Yeah.
And having someone reach out and say, hey, can you wish my son happy birthday? He's playing the game right now. Or, hey, my wife's sister is a fan of yours from the show. Would you send her a shout out? It's simple stuff like that you're never going to have that happen in your regular everyday life. Right. You're not going to have someone reach out to you and ask for you to, show some kindness. That only takes not even a minute or two to make a quick video and send it off to make somebody's day, because that's the kind of thing that if I can do for somebody to where that's the pivotal point in your life where you're like, hey, this guy went out of his way when he didn't have to.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Really made a special moment for me. Great. I had a guy that I went to school with that by all means, I didn't expect for him to remember me. I didn't expect for him to reach out to me, but I really didn't expect when he told me, hey, I got back into working out and fitness because I saw you out there doing your thing, working hard, and it was inspirational to me. So, it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Besides the motivation from the haters to keep them flapping in mom's basement, it's the inspirational stuff that when I am feeling down and out, and because it's not every day that I want to go hard. I want to be absolutely everything I can be. Taking a break sounds great. Everybody feels that way, I'm sure. But it's those inspirational moments on top of shout out to my wife, because she knows me better than anybody. And she can see and she can tell when I'm sitting in the chair, I'm huffing or puffing, or I just seem lethargic in general. She'll tell me to go class and train with my teammates. She'll tell me to come out here in the garage. This is where I train. This is my home gym out here in my garage where I'm at right now. This is where I spent every night trying to figure out technique, trying to be the best slap fighter in power slap that I could in the future. And the fact that this spot where I'm sitting at talking to you guys is where I was on the phone with Power Slap, a very short time ago before it was even known to the world is astonishing to me. And I'm so grateful for all the opportunities I've been given from then up until sitting on this podcast with you gentlemen.
That's great, man. That's, it's really nice to hear. You sound like you're staying humble. You're not forgetting where you came from. And, so yeah. And what you were saying with just being pulled every which way, you say yes to somebody, then you're saying no. When you say yes to them, you say no to your family. So, but I think you're going to work through it. We're coming up on about an hour. Is there any last closing statements you want to say? And where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, John the Machine Davis. Twitter, John the Machine Davis. I think my @'s Mr. John Davis 185. John Davis on Facebook. They're all verified and all that fun jazz. So that way people aren't stealing my stuff. And I want to shout out to all my sponsors.
Yes, please
BK
do.
BK Construction and Excavating, Built Bars, hashtag Built Athlete, Uncommon Nostalgia from Mansfield, which I'm sure you guys might have heard of. If not, give them a look out. And also the person who connected us, the Boot Life.
Absolutely.
They were my first sponsor. They've helped me out tremendously in all of this. Again, connecting us to be able to do this podcast and really helping me get a schedule, trying to get a schedule, I should say, figured out. So that way I'm continuously doing my social media stuff. And also I'm prepared for the fight and, again, helping take care of my family, because people don't have to be genuinely concerned or genuinely care for me and my family. And they definitely do.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Boot Life. Thank you guys for hooking us up. We're in contact with them, so hopefully we have Chris and Holly on here soon. Love to talk to them, and I want to wish you the best for your fight, October 25th.
We'll be tuning in.
Definitely, and
Thank
also everything you just said. I'll put the links down below in case people find the lead singer of Korn and not you. So
yeah, right. also my YouTube channel for my podcast, it's under John the Machine Davis. It's called Preventative Maintenance. I'm in the process of trying to make that an up and coming thing more regularly.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll put a link for that too when we get this thing out. So really appreciate it, man. We're going to be supporting you, sharing your stuff. So
For sure.
Give them hell.
Keep on keeping on, man. I think you're doing a good thing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity and your guys' time.
Thank you as well.
Thank you, man.
All right. Later, everybody.
Later.